Hey guys, so welcome back to another Big Al's tattoo video. Now this video is all about the tattoos on my belly that I've previously discussed. So if you haven't seen the first video already, part 1, then please go see it because you'll get a much more in-depth look at the tattoos in general, and you'll be told how long they took. But this video is not focused on what the tattoos look like as such, but what they represent for those who are interested in Nordic and Celtic mythology and history, really, in more. I suppose it's part of their religion. Okay, so as I go down, I'm going to talk about what tattoos represent, and in some ways what they kind of represent for me. Okay, so here we go. Here's the tattoos. Okay, I'll just give you a quick glance in case you haven't seen part 1 and can't really be asked to go find it, because sometimes videos can be hard to find. So I'll give you a quick look at the tattoos up close, which you might not have got quite as an up close view on the previous video anyway, because of course you only have so much time really to talk about on a video on YouTube before people get bored and log off. So maybe you miss a few bits, or maybe I kind of edited the video a little short, but there you go. So there's a quick look at the tattoos. Now the two dogs, okay, come as a pair, and the two dogs are the dogs of Odin. And they represent to me here the two types of afterworld, so to speak. Well, all three of these tattoos represent a form of afterlife that Vikings could go to. When Vikings died, you have obviously most likely heard of Valhalla. Valhalla was the hall of Odin, and 50% of the warriors who died on battlefield bravely in a manner which pleased the gods would go to Valhalla, and they would be picked up and recruited, so to speak, by the Valkyrie, which were female warriors dedicated to Odin, and they, were like spirits. And the other one. Well, the other afterlife where a good warrior would possibly go to, 50% chance, one way or another, would go to Freya instead. Freya had, which is not what most people don't know about this, because not a lot is known about this particular afterlife, but Freya had her own version of Valhalla. She had her own hall where she recruited dead soldiers. For what purposes is unknown, because of course Odin recruited human spirits, or Vikings in the afterworld, and used them and was creating an army to help protect him against Fenrir, which is represented by this moon on my arm. Fenrir, who is this monstrous wolf-like creature born of Loki and his mistress, who's a giantess, and he recruits men who are dedicated to him for that purpose. But why you would be recruited by Freya is unknown, but I assume she probably was building her own army also to fight in Ragnarok. Okay, and that's what these two dogs for me represent. They're Odin's wolves, but they represent to me the two kind of gates of Valhalla, or the gates of the afterworld, which most Viking warriors sought to go to. There were, of course, other afterworlds for normal people who didn't fight, women and children especially, and they were much like how heaven is considered by Christians and Muslims and all that of today's world, sort of nice place to go. It's basically just where you live the life that you had on Earth, or Midgard, as Vikings called it, but just lived it, but without all the cruelty and starvation and all the bad things in life. So it was a nice place to go as well. But obviously, if you were a warrior within what was a warrior society, you would typically be seeking to go to one of these places. There was one third and final afterworld where Vikings would want to go. Now, there is another afterworld where Vikings definitely didn't want to go, and that was Hell. Okay, the word hell comes from the Viking, one of the Viking underworlds, which was ruled over by Hela, which is actually this woman that I've got kind of bunched up in the middle of the moon that represents Fenrir, and that's Fenrir's sister, Hel, or Hela, Her name was Hela, and she lived in the realm of hell, which is where she ruled, and she's the equivalent of the devil of today's society. But there was another afterworld where Viking warriors would like to go to, and it kind of makes sense because Viking warriors were coastal warriors. They would raid coasts primarily. They were raiders by trade, and so consequently, why would you risk, in many ways, going to fight in foreign lands when you could fight in your own territories or fight in land battles, when obviously the risk of drowning is fairly high, especially if there's a big storm or something. Longships were excellent, but nonetheless they could be scuppered quite, like any ship of the day, and even to today, by a bad storm. Or if you were going to a new land that you didn't know existed, you could starve en route, or get disease and illness. Okay, so it makes sense for a warrior society that relies on coastal raids primarily to have a heaven or an afterworld where if you drowned, you can still be rewarded. And if you were a Viking warrior of, who was good looking at the very least, but was big and strong and all the rest of it, then if you drowned in the waters whilst on your raids and stuff, you could actually be found by this lady here, which is Ran. Okay, Ran is the goddess of drowned men. That's officially what she is, but she's essentially one of the sea goddesses. Now, she had a husband, but Viking gods aren't exactly like the Greek gods of the Greek pantheon, aren't exactly known for their for being loyal, so we say. So she liked her orgies, and she liked to have orgies with Viking men who drowned in the sea. So if you died and by drowning, there was a possibility you'd go down to Davy Jones's locker, so to speak. It wasn't that, but the Viking equivalent, and be found by this lady here. And she would basically, you'd have no choice about it. So if you weren't into it, then poor you. But you would have orgies and you would feast with her for all eternity. But for most people, or most men of that, certainly in that society, that was a good place to go. So, and it certainly was a bit, made the fear of drowning less. Okay, so you could either die on the battlefield and go to Odin or Freya, or you could drown and go to Ran instead. So I'm essentially representing the three afterworlds where a Viking warrior would seek to go. Okay, I hope that was interesting to you guys. If you've got any more questions or queries, or if you can teach me, because obviously some of this varies according to what source you read, the information that's available. If you can teach me anything, then feel free to put it in the comments, and I'll read it. When I notice the comments are there, I don't always notice the comments are there because I get so many emails all the time. But I will check regularly, see if there's any comments, and I'll respond back as soon as possible. And hopefully the other people here who view this video will at least create a discussion with you guys as well. Lovely. Thank you for checking in, guys. I hope you like the tattoos. I hope you like the story behind them. And I will see you soon. And this, by the way, as I say, isn't completed yet, but that will be completed, and there'll be some extra artwork under here, but I don't think there'll be any significant meaning to that. It's just to kind of fill the gaps in and create the aesthetic. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye.